Dodge Station is in the middle of the Texas Triangle, surrounded by Dallas, Houston, Austin, and it is famous for two things: Texas A&M and the Museum of the American G.I. Well, I don't care about Texas A&M, so Museum of the American G.I. it is. Every spring they have, usually middle of March, an open house and reenactment, and we've come down to check it out and just see what's going on. Now, of course, the Museum of the American G.I. isn't only about vehicles, but that's what people will come and actually look at. They all want to see the tanks and the vehicles running around. And one of the great things is everything here is maintained to a standard. You just get in, turn on the ignition, and it's ready to go. So we'll be seeing those running around a little bit later. But for now, they're in a static display. So what we're going to do is just have a quick look at some of the vehicles they have here and very briefly have a mention of them. Starting off with the M8 Greyhound, as the British called it. The 37 was originally going to be designed to be used as an anti-tank gun. This was a gun motor carriage, a tank destroyer. Well, it turned out it became a little bit anemic by the time the M8 was ready to enter service. It was turned from a gun motor carriage into an armoured car. Very, very popular, particularly with the British. And the British really do like their armoured cars as well. They had some excellent ones. In addition to their home builds, they did like the M8. Of course, the M8 is not the only reconnaissance vehicle here. It was very good at its job, but if you really wanted to do reconnaissance for the armoured battalions, you have the M24 Chaffee as well. A little bit bigger, obviously, more visible, more vulnerable, bigger gun, very handy. And of course, this is also the exact vehicle that we filmed inside the Chieftain's hatch on the M24 and the Pico Tank School series. So if you want to know a little bit more about this tank and what it's all like inside, go ahead and check those two out. In the meantime, let's go on to the Stuart. To give Stuart a quick description, you've got your twin Cadillac V8 engine at the back. You've got the vertical volute suspension system on the sides. Old, but rugged and reliable. At least they knew it. Tracks, you could have steel, you could have rubber, you could have chevron. Good variety depending what sort of terrain you were going to be driving over. The 37mm standard on American tanks since well before World War II. It wasn't a bad gun for what it was, but as a combat weapon in Europe, it'll take on half tracks, armored cars, but there's no German armor or assault gun that it was really expected to take off. So that's why they went with the 75mm on the M24. We also filmed an M18 tank destroyer, the gun motor carriage Hellcat, such as that one over there. A slight step up from the 37 that he was playing with, 76mm was a very good anti-tank gun. Not given quite enough credit because the HVAP around high velocity armor piercing didn't enter service until later in the war. They didn't realize they needed it. Once they figured that little bit out, they were able to make a very lethal cannon. You're also going to see these vehicles used in an upcoming movie by the name of Saints and Soldiers: The Void. And I'm kind of looking out for that one as well. It's been a while since you've seen tank destroyers in movies. Big tanks, of course, as well. M4A3 75. Earliest version of the vehicle. Got added with a little bit of applique sloped armor here to protect the driver's hoods. Still the 75. We haven't upgraded to the 76mm tank yet. We still have the A3 with the early suspension. A lot of people will think the M4A3, they only came in the E8, they only came with the 76, they only came with wet stowage. Not the case. They were in production all the way from the beginning with the Ford V8 engine. The GAA, perfectly good 500 horsepower engine. Of course, that meant that the tank was a little bit bigger than it needed to be because it was so high to allow all the other engines that would go into it. The A3 was the most successful one. It was upgraded over the years with the new gun, with the new suspension, and the A3 was the last Sherman gun variant in service with the US Army. Obviously seeing great service in Korea, where a lot of them even replaced M26s that just weren't cutting the mustard there anymore. Of course, you can't have a reenactment without having the enemy, and here's an example of some of their equipment. It is supposedly an SDKFZ 251. In actuality, it's a Czech post-war. But the design is very, very similar, and they've Vismodded it a little bit to look much more like the original German half-track. The front wheels were not powered. Steering was both a combination of the wheels and differential steering on the track, so that actually killed a lot of the benefit of having a half-tracked steering wheel vehicle, as well, you still have the complication of construction and maintenance. My favorite thing about the 251, however, and it's not on this because this is dry pin track, but if you look at an actual 251, the track is it's wet pin. You have to unbolt and put lubricant into every single link of the track. And that has got to be a nightmare, and I'm glad they got rid of that idea a very long time ago. Another member of the evil opposition, Sturmgeschütz. Well, kind of. It is a scale replica of a Sturmgeschütz, but if you have a look at the road wheels, you realize that, well, maybe this actually might have been something else entirely, an FV432. Still, externally, once you get away from the wheels, it looks like a Stug. Most successful German vehicle, arguably. Very heavily produced. It did what it was supposed to do and then some. Crewed by artillerymen. It was working in the Sturmgeschützen was basically the only way the artillerymen were eligible for the combat awards that were usually only reserved for armor or infantry. And of course, you can't really fault anybody for not having a real Sturmgeschütz. They are kind of rare these days, so credit to the lads for building something that looks this good. For most people, you wouldn't know the difference. It'll look the part tomorrow.